this in.
早晨，毓民。阿Paul，你今日特別 cancel 會令我哋多謝你喎。我以為你今日有特別。我哋今日去第三部分應該。
I think we can start and we will deal with part 3. I would like to welcome the Director of Audit, and the Secretary for Development, Mr. Paul Chan, and his team. I think we can start now. Any declaration of interest? The lead member for this part is Paul Chan. We completed part 2 last time. We asked the administration for some photos. The photos have been received, and we will check the dates of the photos. Thank you very much, Director, for the photos. So, Paul, I understand that we will today deal with part 3, handling of public reports. And of course, we will deal with the other parts later. Chairman, in fact, parts 3, 4, and 5 are a follow-up on the UBW policy. Part 3 deals with the procedures for handling public reports. I would like to refer to figure 3, and that's page 27 of the Director of Audit's report. Figure 3 shows a flow chart for the handling of UBW public reports. Now, when the Buildings Department receives a report, it carries out screening of the department's records, and then it will arrange for an inspection to be held. And then in 2010, the policy stated that there should be a differentiation between actionable and non-actionable UBWs. In fact, after 2010, the definition of actionable UBWs was expanded. But let's look at the steps for dealing with actionable UBWs. First of all, issuing of an advisory letter. And if no action is taken by those concerned, then a removal order may be issued. And the removal order will be registered at the lands registry. And then the department may take prosecution action and arrange for default works to be carried out, and the owner will be billed later. And then for non-actionable UBWs, there can be 2 scenarios. First, a warning notice to be issued and a non-compliant warning notice to be registered at the land registry. Then the second scenario, an advisory letter to be issued but no immediate follow-up action will be taken because these are minor cases. So can I confirm with the director that these are the steps being taken by the buildings department to deal with UBWs? Yes, correct. Can you please speak into the mic so that we can all hear you, Director? Thank you. Chairman, so there are these procedures in place, but it seems that there have been problems with the implementation of these procedures or measures. With regard to the issuing of an advisory letter or a removal order or the registering of a removal order at the LR or the taking of prosecution action or the arranging for default works to be carried out, we have seen considerable delay in recent years. So can I ask the officials to account for the delay for us, please? Director. Chairman, in fact, I did touch upon this last time. Now, in the 10-year program, we issued a large number of removal orders. And a lot of follow-up action had to be taken. Since 2010, we have had a number of major safety incidents. And we had to deploy our manpower to deal with emergency cases. And since 2010, many NCSC staff have left the department, and so we did suffer from a shortage of manpower resources. Since last year, we have had some replenishment of our resources, and we are now actively trying to clear the backlog. Chairman, thank you. Paul. Let's look at the matter from a different perspective. Last time, we did discuss the delay in the issuing of warnings. And now let me follow up on the implementation or enforcement of removal orders. There's usually a deadline in the removal order, and if the owner defaults, then the removal order will be registered at the LR, and then the owner may be prosecuted and may be fined $200,000 and imprisoned for a year, and may be fined $20,000 on each day the offense continues. So these penalties are meant to serve a deterrent effect. Then I understand that in May 2004, it was said that the purpose of registering the removal order at the LR was to protect the interests of the consumers, for example, prospective buyers. And the measure was also intended to serve a deterrent effect. Paul, can you tell us which paragraph we are talking about? 5.3, Chairman. I may be skipping from paragraph to paragraph, from chapter to chapter, Chairman, because I think we need to deal with a number of parts together. And according to organizations, views of, according to some organizations, including the Bar Association, the belated registering of removal orders in the LRs cannot adequately and effectively protect the consumers. So can I ask the department what difficulties it has encountered in enforcing removal orders and registering them with the LR. Director, concerning the issuing of removal orders and registering them at the LR, we have been doing this, although this is not a statutory requirement under the Buildings Ordinance. But then the fact is that every time we issue a removal order, we register the removal order at the LR after some time. May I refer members to 5.5, para 5.5. From 2004 to 2013, we issued 260,000 removal orders. But then, according to the BCIS, the dates of sending 2,600 orders to the LR for registration were recorded. I want to say that putting records on the BCIS is not part of the process. In other words, after we've registered the orders of the LR, we need to separately input the data into the BCIS. We've told our colleagues that, in fact, inputting the information into the computer system is not the top priority, and in fact most of the removal orders issued have already been registered with the LR. Yes, Chairman. We'll deal with the information system later, but I think at the moment we want to concentrate on the delay. So it seems that the department has been aware of the problem for some time. And why is it that it hasn't taken steps to improve upon the situation? Why is it that there has still been so much delay in registering the removal orders at the LR? Chairman, I want to say that in fact we have been actively following up on the cases. It's true that in some cases there was some omission and the removal orders were not registered at the LR. But I want to say that for the 4 cases stated in para 5.7, the 4 removal orders have already been registered at the LR. We are now updating and improving upon the BCIS, and we hope that there can be connection and interface between our system and the LR's system, so that once a removal order has been registered with the LR, the record can be sent and fed into our system. And in other words, there will no longer be a need for our colleagues to separately input the record into our system. Director, can you please give us some more details so that we can write our report? For example, the timetable for the proposed improvement measures and so on and so forth. Yes. Paul, now I understand that you are upgrading the BCIS, and this upgrading exercise will be completed in 2016. And I want to know when you will be able to have the registration of the removal order at the LR input into your information system immediately. In fact, we do register the removal orders at the LR as soon as possible. But what I was saying that we hoped that the LR could immediately send the record to our system, so that we'll not have to input the information into our computer system again. Now, it is said here that 80% of the removal orders issued were sent to the LR more than 1 month after the issue date. I want to ask whether the situation has improved. Now, our procedure is that we will immediately register the removal orders at the LR. Now, in the past, for some time, we issued large numbers of removal orders after LSOs. And in order to save registration fees, we decided that we could defer the registration work a bit, say 2 or 3 months before the first compliance check. But now, our standard practice is to register a removal order with the LR once it has been issued. Now, for removal orders containing wrong names of owners, wrong addresses, these can't be registered at the LR, and the LR will return those entries to you. It seems that previously, when there were such cases, those orders were no longer registered. Of course, the LR cannot register removal orders with wrong information. But now we have a system whereby we have a meeting to monitor the registration of removal orders. There is a committee headed by me, and in fact we do have a division in our department to follow up on the situation. And so it is pointed out in the report that some removal orders have not been registered, or some of the removal orders have been returned to us by the LR. I want to say that in fact a number of these cases has been on the drop in recent years. So I think our monitoring work has borne fruit.
Paul asked you why that happened. You haven't answered that part yet. Thank you, Chairman. For individual cases whereby, say, the name of the owner has been typed wrongly, and the responsible officer might have been engaged in some other task, so he would not be attending to that mistake in the first instance. Have you increased your manpower? You've got this special policy implemented, and have you added new manpower to tackle and cope with it? The workload has increased, but there hasn't been any corresponding increase in manpower. But then you've got this policy implemented. So would you be reviewing whether the action is successful or not? Can you look at it from a value for money kind of perspective? Chairman, yes. There have been major incidents in the past few years, and our colleagues may have to attend to these special events or incidents, and they have been under a lot of pressure. The former secretary, all of a sudden, came up with such a policy, and I think you must talk to the secretary and ask for more manpower, because the new policy will affect your normal duties. Has there been an increase in the manpower? Director, in the past few years, we've increased our manpower, and that's because mainly because there has been the wastage of the NCSE staff, so we've got more manpower. So the increase in manpower has to do with the LSOs, is that right? Or is it that it is a normal exercise, manpower increase exercise? Of course, the main theme is building safety, and then under building safety, we are adding manpower under different portfolios. For example, for last year and this year, we are adding manpower to clear the backlog of removal orders to be carried out. In implementing removal orders, Chairman, you may ultimately prosecute. Now, starting from paragraph 5.2, every year there have been consistently, say, 1,000 or so prosecution cases, but that's very minimal compared to the number of removal orders issued. And it seems that in most of the cases, only a fine is imposed, and only 4 cases involve an imprisonment, and so on. I don't know whether this at this occasion is the right one for us to make comments on the penalty. But anyway, this is what we're seeing here. What we're concerned about is whether the prosecution policies is duly implemented. Now, paragraph 5.5 sets out the prosecution policies, and 9 criteria are set out. And the top 4 are the most serious. For example, blockage of corridors in industrial buildings, and also if there are threats identified in LSOs, and also if the person has committed the offense for more than once. And then also the 4th criterion is the breach of the minor works control system or regulation. So these are the top 4 most important criteria. But then the prosecution number remains on the low side, and it seems that you are not adhering to the guidelines strictly. Is it because of a shortage of manpower or other reasons that this is the case? Director, 5.25 paragraph reminds colleagues on the scenarios where prosecution can be taken out. We've got some 60,000 non-compliant removal orders, and we don't have time really to look at each and every case to see whether prosecution is warranted. But then if a colleague finds that a prosecution is appropriate, then he would have to check the case against these criteria. The first few are the more important criteria, so these can be taken into reference. And actually, for many cases on hand, actually, they can be prosecuted based on these criteria. But these cases are put in a queue, and we may not have time to look at each and every one of the cases. Okay, let me put another question to you. We've got 60,000 cases unhandled, not handled yet, and there are only 1,000 prosecution cases every year. So if you make a calculation, then, well, the figure is staggering. Well, you need a lot of time to do prosecution. You said you would resort to prosecution to deter owners so that they would voluntarily demolish the UBWs. But then that message doesn't seem to get across very well. So have you thought about using summons to do to help you, so that the cases don't have to be taken to court, and that you will not end up with a backlog of cases which should be prosecuted, and then you can enhance your deterrent effect? Prosecution is one of the means to enforce the law. There are many reasons for the backlog of cases. If you look at figure 4 on page 52, you can see that the number has been increasing. In the past 11 years, the number of removal orders and the number of non-compliant reorders has been compared, and we found that the number of removal orders issued has outnumbered that the number of removal orders being complied with. So there has been a backlog of removal orders. Some 1,000 removal orders have not been complied with each year. So we have to increase the manpower. as to whether prosecution is an effective means to enforce the law. And experience shows that after prosecution, the owners will demolish the UBWs concerned. But we can't really look at the resources only. Actually, some owners are willing to take action after a removal order or an advisory letter has been issued. So we want to use as many means as possible to encourage the owners to comply with the removal orders. Well, as to whether we would consider fixed penalty tickets or summonses or what, that can be considered. Actually, for the mandatory window inspection scheme, that approach is being taken, and that has been implemented for a year or so. So we still have to accumulate more experience to see if the fixed penalty approach can help us. So, okay, I'll stop here. Ellen. Thank you, Chairman. The basis of the audit is really much done on the policies as stated by the government, but the policies seem to be very broad. But then that seems to be a lot of empty talk here. Removal orders, there have been delays in issuing removal orders, paragraph 3.4 and 5. Rooftop podium lane UBWs in April 2011. There has been a new policy, so even if the UBWs don't pose an imminent threat, then they still have to be demolished. But then, to the number of removal orders issued against this rooftop podium lane UBWs are very small in number. Now, after the removal orders have been issued, they have to be registered at the land registry. But in Part 5, we see that there is a set of guidelines. Paragraph 5.3. In May 2004, it is said in April that the copy of a removal order will be sent to the LR, and the audit result found that only 1% had been sent. Now, but the director said just now that not all the orders have been recorded. But you said that they have been sent across. So on what basis would you say that? Now, the government will take out prosecution or arrange for default works to be undertaken. Now, for the 68,134 non-compliant removal orders, only 9,608 has been sent to the buildings department, the building division. You said that the policy encompasses all, but then there has been delay in issuing removal orders. And even if removal orders have been issued, they have not been registered at LR, and no prosecution has been taken. So it's all empty talk. You talk a lot, but with little action being taken. The director just now said that a lot of the owners will voluntarily take action after a removal order has been received. I don't think that's a fair approach. There are 7 types of buildings under the actionable UBWs. Well, after the audit exercise, well, it seems unclear that what these actionable UBWs are, and there is not a checklist either. So it seems that you seem to be saying that you would remove UBWs. You don't allow such UBWs to exist. But in practice, you don't know what buildings should be the actionable UBWs. There is no checklist. You either don't issue any removal order, or you and there has been a delay in several years in issuing removal orders. And after a removal order is issued, you don't register in the land registry, and you don't refer the non-compliant removal order to the legal services section of the buildings department. So you are having empty talk. You are doing nothing. So this is the impression that we get after reading through the audit report. So perhaps I'll give you the opportunity, the secretary and the controlling officer, to answer my questions. If you think what I said is wrong, please clarify. That will be fair to them. Witness, can I refer you to registration at land registry? May I refer you to paragraph 5.3. First of all, Director, you agreed that in May 2004, the Development Bureau informed Electrical that upon the service of a removal order on an owner, the BD would at the same time send a copy of the order to the LR for registration. I think this is a good law enforcement tactics, since if there is a change in the ownership of the building involved, and at least the new owner can talk to the seller of the building and ask for a price slash, or he would say that he would offer to demolish the UBW for that. Director or Secretary? Now, this is a policy stated in May 2004. Now, is it that the policy is no longer valid now? Well, a lot of us don't understand why there is a change in the policy at that time. Can you give us some background information so that we can understand more? Way back in 2004, well, actually, before that, only UBWs which pose imminent danger would be demolished or removed. But then there has been a change to that. Well, so can you give us some background so that we can understand more? Yes, Chairman, perhaps I'll ask the Permanent Secretary, the Controlling Officer, to speak first, and then I will supplement later. In the law, any UBWs are illegal, and we don't want anyone to break the law. But then there is a great number of UBWs, so we set priorities all along. We'll see whether the UBWs pose any safety hazards to and the member said that we don't know which UBWs should be given priority. No, that's mistaken, because we know very well which UBWs should be actionable and which are not actionable. In implementing our policy, we want to tighten the policy bit by bit. So in 2004, this is the first phase. In the last meeting, we actually talked about this. Now, for the metal cages built at the outside the buildings, we said at that time we should tighten on those UBWs. So that would provide a basis for law enforcement. And through publicity, we want to let the public know that we have tightened the law enforcement policy, and they don't have to wait till the buildings department came and inspected the buildings and issue them with removal orders. They could actually voluntarily remove their own UBWs. So this is our objective. The member said just now that the buildings department were slackening in our efforts. Please be fair to the colleagues of the buildings department. I have been in my post for 5 to 6 years. I think they are very dedicated to their work. Well, it took a long time for us to do the work, but then a lot of UBWs outside or at the external walls of the building have already been removed. Now, in view of resource constraints, we want to do the best jobs with regard to the registration at the LR. The director said, admitted that they have been very slow in taking forward the task, and that's because of limited resources. And the director said just now that they have started this new mechanism so that a better job can be done. Concerning prosecution, the Bureau and the department have been in dialogue to reset our priorities so that we can strengthen our work on prosecution. And in 2004, with regard to the rooftop podium lane UBW's policies, and we have reduced the number of buildings covered in the LSOs so that more people can be deployed to do prosecution work, particularly on the backlog of cases. So we would continue to talk with the director to set our priorities. And the Bureau will also try to help in increasing resources. It's not the case that resources are infinite, and we would be looking at the danger posed by the UBWs, and we'll also take on board how to best utilize our resources. We try to expedite our work and strengthen our law enforcement work and effectiveness. Mr. Thomas Chow, I believe that he didn't mean to overturn his evidence given on May the 5th at the first hearing. I thought the administration agreed to our comments that the action is not clear as to what are actionable UBWs. The verbatim records of the last hearing is here with me. And what we heard last time is that in 2011 they had this stock-taking exercise, and the objective stated is not to find out the exact number of the actionable UBWs, and that was the evidence they gave. Is it the case that he wanted to overturn his evidence last time?
For the items, I have no evidence on hand to show that given the limited manpower resources of the buildings department, they are not doing a good job. That was not what I meant. So I think Mr. Chow didn't have to put these words in my mouth. But the reality is that there is a policy in place. So as far as enforcement goes, the three measures in place are ineffective, and as such, this is unfair to the public who are playing by the rules. I'm sure other members will ask questions of you very soon. When you read Chapter 5, Case 3, there is a case of an outstanding removal order in Hong Kong Island, and it has been in place for a long time. And for Case 4, there is a removal order in Lantau Island with an outstanding UBW. And it was reported in March 2004. And by the time of audit in 2015, it's still outstanding. So we do see such cases. It might only be 2 cases, but if this is the way you are going to enforce the law, it simply doesn't work. If the relevant building owners would remove the UBWs immediately, there won't be any problems. But there are cases which have been outstanding for over 10 years, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I hope Mr. Chow understands what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that you are not enforcing the rules by purpose. I understand that you might not have enough manpower and resources, but the reality is that the policy you announce is all-encompassing, but in terms of enforcement, you are not doing your job. I'm not sure whether the director intends to amend the evidence given on the 5th of May. No, of course I don't have such intention. Well, I clarified the matters because Mr. Leung seemed to be doubting the efforts of the Buildings Department, and with regards to the speed, I admit that we are going rather slow, but we will maintain communications with the director, and hopefully we can do better to deploy resources, and hopefully we can expedite the process. Parent Secretary, we understand the issue. We have a policy, but if the departments could not follow, then that means the policy itself is problematic. When you look at Gen 19, when you look at those photos, you can see the photos of buildings before and after the enforcement. We are talking about buildings from 1991 and 1992 and so on. If those require urgent action, then something should be done as soon as possible. You should not make empty promises and policies, or else it will be unfair to the Buildings Department. You have to see whether they have enough resources and manpower. If you have a policy, but yet it cannot be enforced by the Buildings Department, it will be unfair to them. Our policy has been evolving for metal cages outside the buildings. As the director said, we only managed to remove all of them after more than 10 years. So we understand the limited resources of the Buildings Department, and as such we would try to fight for more resources for them so that we can tackle the outstanding cases. The previous Director of Buildings said that he would not accept even one outstanding case, but this is not the case in reality. Owners who don't follow the rules can continue to live by. This is unfair to the public, to all building owners. Chairman, I hope the controlling officer and secretary understand that's the public audit mechanism aims to scrutinize public policies. The audit report repeatedly mentions the building guidelines, all the guidelines issued by the Buildings Department. So our job is to look at the promises made by the bureaus and departments. That's the basis of the audit exercise. If your goal is to remove all UBWs by 20 years, so to speak. Well, this is not what you promised. This is not what you promised to us. This is not what the guidelines say. And you are telling us that you have no resources and manpower, and as such, you need a long time. I think you should either adjust your policy or introduce extra manpower. If you do neither, that's what we are going to say in the audit report, and the PAC would come to such hard conclusions. But it seems that neither the Bureau or the department intend to amend your policy or introduce extra manpower. So that's why we have this dilemma. Any response from Paul? Mr. Raymond Wong. Thank you, Chairman. Education is a long process, and the removal of UBWs is also a long process. For education, we need to establish a long-term vision, and we need to nurture talents. So I think for UBWs, your policy is the same. You have a great vision, but you are not enforcing it. I think you are very sure of your job, which is to ensure building safety. And in his speech, the Secretary has made a lot of empty claims, just like his predecessors. And that his conclusion is that he would take on board the recommendations of the audit report, and there's great room for improvement. So by room for improvement, when you look at the executive summary of the audit report, those 10 recommendations, what do they tell? I think it has been explained in the first part of the executive brief. And in terms of removing UBWs, it's unclear the number of actionable UBWs, and 33 UBW items are still unremoved, and it takes a long time to issue removal orders, and it takes a long time to issue removal orders for rooftop podium lane UBWs, and it would take a long time to issue warning notices to the land registry for those large-scale operations or LSOs. There's substantial delay in removing the rooftop podium lane UPWs. You only need to look at these points in the summary. Everything has been laid out clearly in the audit report, and the Secretary merely responded by saying that the building department has room for improvement in terms of removing UBWs. This is a ridiculous explanation, and this problem will persist for another 100 years. When you are dead, the problem will still be here. You're just same as your predecessors. You did not respond to the problem. And you're saying that we cannot rely on the buildings department, and we have to count on the owners to remove the UBWs. Well, this part is obvious, right? You have no one to blame. The fact is, a lot of owners are not playing by the rules, and we have to step up public education. How much have you done in terms of public education, and what are the results? From a value for money perspective, the Audit Commission raised 10 recommendations, and they asked you to step up and improve your work, and it covers different scopes. Once you read this report, everyone can tell how serious the problem is with UBWs and building safety in Hong Kong. But you will just continue with what you're doing, and the problem will persist for another 100 years. You are just making empty claims, and you are not doing something substantial. We are at a dead end, and even after this public hearing and even after the audit report, nothing will improve. Well, for the UBWs in the new territories, there's nothing you can do because you are being so lame. The fact is you don't have enough manpower, and you've been making empty claims all along, according to the audit report. Well, of course, we'll go through the items one by one. So, but we have to point out the biggest problem yet. I have a question on the third part. The handling of public reports. All these are going to take a long time. When you look at paragraph 3.5, out of the actionable UBWs, 4,500 public reports had to wait for more than 6 months before removal orders are issued. When you look at case 1, the buildings department's explanation was that it was difficult to enter the premises, and there was a mislaying of files, and there were other issues with the removal orders. Out of those more than 4,000 cases, well, we are just looking at case 1. You can look at page 26 to 27 about the long time taken in issuing a removal order on actionable UBWs. A public report was received in August 2006. And after the initial inspection 2006, 8 years lapsed before a removal order was issued. In the gist, the BD's response was that it was difficult to enter the premises. There was file mislaying, and there was some other reasons as well. Out of those 4,000 odd cases, were all these difficulties encountered, like difficulties in entering the premises, mislaying of files, and so on? Who can answer this question? Director? Under paragraph 3.5, 4,500 public reports were received, and upon inspection, a long time was required before removal orders were issued. And as of October last year, since the audit obtained these figures, in the past 5 months, the figure dropped to 4,048 cases. And we are trying to catch up with those outstanding orders. And a lot of people don't know that we are conducting the audit work, but a lot of work is going on behind the scenes. This is unrelated. Please don't waste our time. Out of those 4,000 odd public reports, did you encounter difficulties mentioned in case 1, like difficulties in entering the premises, the mislaying of files, error in judgment, and so on? Can you provide any figures? What are the reasons for the delay? I think he understands your question. I guess he cannot answer your question right now. But out of these 4,500 public reports, apart from case 1, what are the reasons for not taking action? Can you provide a breakdown? Chairman, I think this would be substantial work for us. we are able to make a detailed analysis of case 1 because it's only one case. For typical public reports of UBWs, we just want to illustrate that there could be such difficulties in, for example, the need to issue a removal order, the need to work with other government departments, and when determining whether the UBW is actionable, we have to comply with various requirements. This is not a satisfactory case, I admit. Of course, this is dissatisfactory, but looking forward, we would monitor each and every case. In terms of file management, we have done work as well. We will continue to improve file handling. And in determining how we should act upon the UBWs, guidelines were issued. We still have 4,000 outstanding cases. We would, if we have to share reasons on why, one by one, on why removal orders were not issued, it would be substantial work for us. You have to explain to the public. The audit highlighted one case. I cannot answer your question. You can say that you cannot answer this question because you don't have the manpower and resources. So he can. This is ridiculous. I was only asking for analysis. What about for other cases apart from case 1? You should do the same and come up with reasons. We are just talking about statistics. I think a more pragmatic approach is to focus our manpower on the outstanding 4,000 cases. In the past 5 months, we have tackled 470 odd cases. For those 4,500 outstanding cases, what are the reasons for not issuing removal orders? Let's say you might have 4 major reasons. You should have this information. For example, you could not enter the premises and so on. I'm not asking you to give a reason for each and every case. I'm not asking you to give separate explanations for each case. But for some cases, the process was swift, but why can't you be equally quick for other cases? So we're just looking at it from an audit perspective. I think he made a reasonable request in asking for the information. I think we can highlight certain cases randomly, and you can explain the situation to us.
There are some who belong to the privileged class, right? And CY Leung belongs to this privileged class. Let's not go around in circles here. Please be more specific. In some cases, the title is not clear. You have to obtain information from the LR concerning the title. How many cases fall into this category? Do you have the figures? We have to find out the causes of the problem. We're not the experts. We do not understand the difficulties that you frontline people encounter. And you've given 4 reasons in this report for the delay. So can you give me figures for the different categories? So they're talking about 4,000 cases. So my follow-up is this. Can you tell me why it's so difficult to enter premises? And then there are about 4,000 other cases in which gaining entry into the premises was difficult. So can you tell us the difficulties? You have to tell us the difficulties. Is it that the owners lock the doors and do not allow your staff to enter? So can you give us more details? Chairman, now if we are to inspect and UBW, it is important that we can gain entry into the premises to inspect the UBW and to take measurements. Now we've received reports about subdivided units and also other UBWs, and in these cases entry to the premises is important. Now previously we received many complaints about UBWs on external walls, and those are easier to inspect. Very often there isn't anybody in the flat, or we're denied entry. And so our colleagues will have to carry out another visit. So our colleagues will try again on a different day and say if last time they could not gain entry in the morning, they would go in the afternoon on the second occasion. And then if we repeatedly fail to gain entry, we may write to the owner. We may seek the help of the management company, asking the management company to contact the owner for us. And in many cases, we can ultimately gain entry into the premises. In fact, on some occasions, we had to apply to the courts for warrants to enter the premises. But then LegCo members warned us that we had to be very careful in making applications for warrants under the law. And so we'll only invoke upon such powers in very serious cases. In other words, cases in which entry is important. In fact, at that time, we were discussing the mandatory window inspection scheme. In fact, the law allows us to enter premises under certain conditions. For example, when building safety is threatened. Now, I may not be able to tell members whether we have difficulties entering premises in many cases. But then, in particular, when we are talking about subdivided flats in industrial buildings, we have to gain entry into the premises if we are to make an inspection. So it seems that there is no way out. But of course, we also have to protect the privacy of members of the public. Yes, I understand. But then concerning the issuing of removal orders for actionable UBWs, it's taking so long. So it seems that the buildings department doesn't have effective ways to deal with the problem. Yes, you do have you can apply for warrants to enter premises under the mandatory window inspection scheme. But I think you should understand that you have the powers to gain entry to inspect UBWs. I'm not saying that on every occasion you need to prise open the doors, but it seems that the buildings department is at the end of its wits. It doesn't have any effective ways to resolve the problem. Now, I would like to refer to 3.112 as of October. of the 25,000 public reports on rooftop podium lane UBWs, blah, 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 only 3,357, 30% of such public reports have been dealt with the remaining 21,000 reports awaiting BD orders. And then it is said that you've applied for an additional $1.2 billion to deal with UBWs, but at the same time, the Buildings Department has been suffering from a shortage of manpower. So I just want to know how many reports the department has resolved with the additional financial resources. Which paragraph, Chairman, was the member reading from? 3.12. Chairman, 3.12 is about the follow-up action we took in relation to public reports on rooftop podium lane UBWs. Because of the change in our policy, we received an increased number of reports on rooftop podium lane UBWs. For rooftop podium lane UBWs, in the stock-taking exercise, we estimated that there were about 47,000 rooftop podium lane UBWs. And from 2011 to 2014, for rooftop podium lane UBWs, we issued removal orders for 18,000 or 40% of the rooftop podium lane UBWs. And during the same period, 11,000 rooftop podium lane UBWs were removed. In other words, about 25% of the number estimated in the stock-taking exercise. But I want to say that sometimes we do receive repeated reports for the same UBW, and sometimes we receive one report covering more than one UBWs. For example, in one case in Wong Tai Sin, there was one report covering 24 rooftop podium lane UBWs, and so in one single clearance operation or removal operation, we cleared all the 24 rooftop podium lane UBWs. Now, our policy is that we take action when we receive public complaints, irrespective of the risk level of the UBWs concerned. But then when we receive reports involving UBWs which are of a high risk, we may remove the other UBWs on the same floor or in the same building in the same operation. Now, I believe even the secretary feels confused. Yes, we understand that sometimes repeated reports are made against the same UBW by the same person or by different persons. And of course, you sometimes issue advisory letters, sometimes warning letters, sometimes removal orders. But then we want to know the details of the backlog. Even if a removal order is issued, it doesn't mean that the owner will remove the UBW immediately upon receiving the removal order. Many years ago, I leased a flat in Kowloon City. I discovered an UBW. I made a report, and then that was because and at that time there were media reports saying that Wong Yok Man leased a unit with UBW, and I can tell you that in fact this UBW is still there. It hasn't been removed. So my feeling is that this problem of UBWs will still be with us for the next century. It's not going to go away. And but of course we want you to do your best to try to resolve the problem. But I can understand that in fact you are at the end of your wits. There's nothing that you can do to contain the problem. They want to do more, but then they haven't got enough manpower resources. But then there are 25,000 warnings which have not been complied with. So I want to know what's going to happen to these warnings. In 2005, the legislation was amended, and warning notices could be issued. And our policy is to register these warning notices at the LR to protect the interests of the prospective buyers and consumers. But at that time, the rooftop podium lane UBWs were not our top priority, but then the policy changed in 2011, and so since then warning notices have been replaced by removal orders in phases. And out of the 25,000 warnings, many of them have been included in our LSOs, and we're going to issue statutory removal orders for these UBWs in due course. So when will these LSOs be carried out? They are ongoing. And in fact, for some of the UBWs, removal orders have been issued. For the others, removal orders will be issued. I can give members a timetable later. Yes, Mr. Wong Yok-man. Back to the warning notices. May I refer to para 3.18? It is said that 985 non-compliant warning notices have been referred back from the LR, and they have not been forwarded again to the LR for registration. And then there are 1,132 non-compliant warning notices, and about 800 of them have to do with rooftop podium lane UBWs. So can I ask you whether you have looked at the warning notices that have been registered with the LR, and among these cases, how many of the UBWs have been removed or will be removed within 60 days, and how many have not or will not? Director, yes, 989 warning notices are mentioned in para 3.18. Last year, in October, the Director of Audit discovered that 985 non-compliant warning notices were not successfully registered with the LR. They were referred back to the Buildings Department for follow-up. And as of April this year, the number has dropped to 848. So in other words, we've taken follow-up action on about 100 of these warning notices. As to why the warning notices could not be registered with the LR, now, if the problem is a mistake in the name or the address, we can make prompt rectifications, and the warning notices can be referred back to the LR for registration. But then if we have difficulties identifying or ascertaining the title or the ownership, then we'll have to ascertain the title, we'll have to ascertain that the UBW is still there, and then we'll have to go through the procedure of issuing the warning notice again. And for rooftop podium lane UBWs, when we need to go through the step of issuing the warning notice again, we will, under the new policy, issue a removal order instead of issuing a warning notice. Yes, I'll follow up later, Chairman. Mr. Ng Leong Seng. Chairman, I believe we are all clear about the broad directions. I think if we want to resolve the UBW problem within a reasonable time frame, we'll need sufficient financial as well as manpower resources. So this report tells us that many complaints or public reports have been received, but not too many warning notices or removal orders were issued. In fact, members can see from para 3.3, for example, that many public reports have been received, but not many removal orders, warning notices, and advisory letters have been issued. And I want to get some evidence from the director on the basis of case 1. We understand that from a macro point of view, it's not easy at all to resolve the UBW problem. But then, if we can achieve better value for money for each and every case, then the situation will improve. For example, we hope that the resources for dealing with 10 cases can be used to resolve 15 cases. So may I refer the administration to case 1. Now, this is a case on actionable UBWs. In August 2006, the BD received a public report on UBWs. And may I refer to para 2 now? Then that's page 31 of the English version. And 4 new UBWs were found. A. External wall glass panels of a cock lift. B. A canopy of over 0.6 meter extended from the cock loft. C. A cock loft with a staircase on the ground floor. And D. A shop front encroachment of 0.55 meter on public pavement. And the BD classified the works as actionable UBWs. In other words, all 4 UBWs were actionable and warranted speedy action. And in March 2008, the BD issued an advisory letter advising the owner to remove the UBWs. And then in March 2010, and then in April 2014, BD carried out inspections. So there was a 4-year gap between the 2 inspections. And the inspection report wasn't available till April 2014, a few years after the first inspection in 2010. So I want to know, during the or in the interim, did the staff continuously follow up on the case? Were there human errors involved? Was there omission or negligence on anybody's part? And then it was said that the files were mislaid. So was it carelessness on anyone's part, or was it deliberate omission? So were there staff who were assigned to follow up on the case? So I just want to know what happened during the 4 to 5 years between the 2 inspections.
You said that there weren't sufficient grounds. In May 2014, the buildings issued an advisory letter to clear the canopy at 2, paragraph 2. You said that there were sufficient reasons. So who decided whether you've got sufficient reasons or grounds or not? So can someone give an explanation? Thank you. Case 1 is a rather complicated case. And I'd like to thank the Audit Commission for identifying this particular case to study. This seemed to be a simple public report on UBWs. But then a number of different UBWs were involved in the case. Paragraph 2 sets out the 4 different types of UBWs in this case. In paragraph 8a, we said that in the course investigation, we encountered problems in gaining access to the premises. When we tried to follow up afterward, and we found that the subject file was mislaid, and it took us some time to identify or retrieve the file. Every case is handled by a team of staff members. But then the people in that team may change sometimes. When one person hands over the case to another, if it is not done properly, then there might be problems. As we said, we have strengthened our monitoring work on various cases. Now, for this particular case, removal order had to be issued and it had to be removed. And after some time, the case should already been revisited again by the team head and to see why it took such a long time to follow up on the case. But there were so many similar cases, so the team head had to deal with the cases one by one. In paragraph 3, we said that in 2014, we inspected the cock loft and also the staircase leading to the cock loft. We think that we might not have sufficient justification to say that they are new works. Now, after we did a review afterwards, we think that the colleague made the wrong judgment at that time. The right approach is to determine whether there are new works by the period when the works were erected. So we issued a warning notice to the cock loft and the staircase. And in March this year, we issued a removal notice on these UBWs. There has been some new development. After the removal order had been issued, we received an appeal from the relevant party on this cock loft. With regard to paragraph 2, point B, and canopy was mentioned. After we issued the removal order, the canopy was already removed by the owner. With regard to A, the external wall glass panels, depending on the size of the UBW, they may or may not have to be removed. The glass panels were smaller than that for an actionable or specified size, so we didn't need to issue a removal order. So overall, different types of UBWs were involved, and the case can teach us, or we can learn a lesson from this. Maybe we say that we are dealing with only one case, but then there may be different issues involved, and it involves not just one single staff member, but also the staff's superiors and the whole team will have to study the case. So this case is a very good example to illustrate the 44,000 cases that we are dealing with every year. If each case is as complicated as this one, then we are facing indeed a very grave challenge. The member asked about from the period 06 to 14. In paragraph B, what did you study? Why that was the case, and how many cases, similar cases are found. Well, the subject file was being mislaid, and how many cases, similar cases were found. Well, these may be isolated cases, but it's not a common practice. I hope that this is not something common. I would be discussing LSOs In paragraph 4.12, again, the question of a file being mislaid was also mentioned. Is 4.12a, and there was a mislaying of the file again. So these are very astonishing reasons for delays. If there was mislaying of file, losses might be incurred, and this is a great problem. You said that the mislaying of the file is isolated incident, but then again, when I read 4.12, it is mentioned again. I will ask a question on this later. Is this the case that mislaying of a file is not an isolated incident? You said that cases are being followed up by a whole team. Mr. Raymond Wong said that the handling of the cases may take a long time. It may be being handled by, say, several generations of staff members. So if that is the case, then the management system will be very important. So time and again, mislaying of the file is identified, either deliberately or inadvertently. Now, if we have an UBW having an area of 20 to 30 square feet, and if the file of the case is mislaid, then the owner may net a very huge profit. So concerning the mislaying of the file, is there something more that you can do to improve the situation? How can you make sure that the handover of the file from one person to another is done properly? So have you done an improvement? How is the situation like now? For this particular case, I think the department can learn a very good lesson from it. In LSOs, the reports of the consultants have also been mislaid as well. So, for case 1, paragraph 8, BD, can you respond to 8B? That is to say, February 2015, a case review in February 2015 reviewed that the previous action had not complied with BD guidelines and had inappropriately ruled that the cockloft and associated staircase, see paragraph 2C, were not new UBWs. Well, the director has sort of mentioned that just now, and hence the BD issued a removal order against the cockloft and associated staircase in March 2015. The misjudgment is also a problem in the management system. Is it that you have misinterpreted the guidelines, or that the guidelines did not apply to that particular year? So concerning ruling, have you learned a lesson to do a better job? Director, can you explain how many staff members are involved in such work? And also for LSOs, you are engaging a number of consultants to help you out. They are being paid. So the more they do, the more money they can pocket, and they will hand you a report after their work. And it's because there are so many files and you are short of manpower, then there is this mislaying of the files. Well, if just by reading through the report, we don't know the historical background. How come that there are so many cases identified? Is it the case that because you are engaging so many contractors to help you out with the LSOs that you are seeing all these mistakes? Well, if that is the case, explain to us so that we can write up a report which is fair. In the past decade, we have hired consultants to help with our work. Well, they will not be in touch with our files. After their investigation, they will hand us a report, and then the report will be inputted into our system. You've got tens of thousands of cases, and they are submitting you a number of reports. Well, the report will be filed together with the relevant file, and then we will follow up accordingly. Well, try to explain the ins and outs of the cases so that we can understand more. If you don't that way, then we will think that you are having a problem with your supervision work. We want to ascertain where the problem lies. Please talk about some policies. We've got some 700 staff members involved in building safety. There are 41,000 buildings in Hong Kong, so a large number of files have been set up. So the consultants will submit reports to us every now and then. Every time we will match the report together with the relevant file. At present, we have a barcode for every file on the surface of the file. There is this central registry, and we'll keep records of where the files are. We are located in different offices, 8 offices together. So inevitably, the files will be transferred from one office to another. As said, we are now studying on RFID technology to track the whereabouts of the files. Now, if this system is implemented, the whereabouts of the files will be made clear to us. And what's more, the department has plans to pull together all the different offices into 1 to 2 locations. So that can help cut down mistakes related to the transferring of the files. With regard to whether we have made a misjudgment in this particular case, I think we have to admit that this is undesirable. But please appreciate that staff members had to read or follow a number of guidelines. First of all, not one single individual staff member will make the decision. At least 2 levels of our staff members are involved in making decisions. What to do with a certain case, whether a removal notice should be issued, and so on. So that at least 2 levels of staff members will be involved. Now, for this particular case, case 1, we have reviewed the case again. We think a more appropriate approach is to regard these UBWs still as new UBWs, and then a removal notice or order should be issued. Well, the black rainstorm signal has just been issued. We are very safe here, so we can continue with our meeting. Well, we should not leave this very safe place. We can go on with our meeting. Well, I just want to let you know that is already the black rain storm signal has been hoisted. With regard to the actual practice in your management, I appreciate that you've got tens of thousands of files on hand, and it will take you a long time to resolve all the cases. But at least for the actionable UBWs, I think you should devote more efforts in these so that man-made errors can be averted. You haven't answered my question. You should investigate whether there were man-made errors in relation to cases where there was mislaying of files. And to ascertain whether there is really a case of negligence rather than deliberate mislaying of files, I think you have to be very careful because some interests may be involved in file management and handover of duties from one staff member to another. Please do your work more carefully. For this case, it straddled 8 years. I don't think this is a sort of common case. I hope that you can come up with new guidelines on your actual operations so that we can be more confident in your work in the future. There is room for improvement, and we don't want to see any more mislaying of the file incidents. You mentioned about guidelines. Who are the parties to verify whether or confirm the guidelines are really being adhered to? There may be some uncertainties. So I hope that you can have set out clear authority as to who has the authority to interpret the guidelines. This is something that I want to add. Can you undertake that you will do what I said? Director. Thank you, Mr. Ng, for your reminder. We deal with our guidelines very carefully. And because we know that they have to be followed by a great number of colleagues. Whenever we issue new guidelines or revised guidelines, we will have long deliberations beforehand, and we make sure that every staff member understands the rationale behind. And every time when new guidelines are issued, they have to be approved by the Deputy Director. So we attach due importance to all these. Mr. Ng referred to case 1, which reflects certain problems, certain management problems on your part. So this is what the PAC is studying now here. And you explained that you will have a new approach later on. Can you give us a paper later on so that when we write the report, we know that you are forward-looking and what you will do in the future? Next one, Mr. Paul Chair. I wanted to quote the case quoted by Mr. Ng just now again. This is taking a micro view perspective on things. Well, talking about a conflict of interest. Paragraph 4.4, we referred to some consultancies. The consultancies' reports. Well, we have 39 consultancy studies, and we're involving $35 million. And starting from paragraph 4.5, we talk about delays, and paragraph 4.9, inadequate monitoring, and 4.11, payments prematurely made to consultants. I would like to ask a question.
At the same time, the consultancies will go around and see which UBWs need to be removed. But at the same time, some owners are approached by consultancies saying that they can help remove their UBWs, and they're given quotations for the removals. So that means at the same time, some consultancies are issuing warnings, and at the same time, they're trying to solicit businesses. We have not received any such reports in the past. Every time we come up with consultancy contracts, they know their code of ethics. If they are to issue removal orders, they should not solicit business. By code of ethics, are you referring to specific guidelines issued by the buildings department. Well, they are stated in the contracts. Just now I saw Mr. Leung nodding all along. Did you not receive any complaints because you would only do something upon receiving complaints? Or do you have any preventative measures in place apart from stipulations in the contract? Have you done any monitoring work? And when assessing the tenders received, if the contractor has certain conflict of interest with the owners, what are you going to do? Or did you even look at this issue? We did maintain communications with the ICAC to avoid any inappropriate situations throughout the process. As I said, in the contracts, we would stipulate certain conditions to our consultancies. For the mandatory building inspection scheme, we made it clear that the inspectors can only do the inspection, but he or she cannot take up the building maintenance repair work in the future, or else the inspector might give a bad report and try to solicit business. So under the law, they are not allowed to take both roads. In some cases of bid rigging, there are a lot of complaints received on building maintenance. Despite the regulations, we still see a lot of complaints. So by having guidelines alone, do you think this is enough? Do they conduct any internal audits? Or you would only act upon receiving a complaint, Director? If we receive a complaint, of course, we'll follow up. But we would frequently review the conditions on the contracts and see whether they are adequate or not. And if necessary, we might introduce extra conditions on the contracts, and we'll also step up monitoring. Chairman, are consultancies required not to share the information to other companies, or even worse, related companies? There should be more stringent controls. According to the contracts, the conditions of the building or UDWs can only be shared with us. I think if any irregularities are detected, they should be reported to the department. And I have a bigger question to ask. This morning, Ms. N. Leung talked about the empty promises in your policy. Before 1975, we did not have any policy. And now we have 7 categories for actionable UBWs. For the third type, 7C, on the rooftops and so on. If they are not of imminent danger, they would not be actionable. And in 2001, the type of UDW under 7C was incorporated into the actionable UBWs. And the stock-taking exercise revealed all the problems at once. And as far as amending guidelines, you would make careful considerations before changing anything. But before that drastic amendment in 2001, did you conduct any studies? And it was a very big promise. Are you sure that you could carry that out? Perhaps the Secretary can talk about the policy and Director about the enforcement. In terms of enforcement, since we were looking at a new policy, we had to alter our public education strategy, and the change was done after review in 2001 to 2010, and certain high-risk UBWs were removed, and we were merely trying to improve our work. We faced a lot of challenges in recent years due to the high number of complaints and certain major incidents happened during this period as well, and we face manpower shortage. If we are to determine whether or not this policy is a failure or success after just a few years, it's not very wise. We have issued a lot of removal orders, and substantial amounts has been removed, but we would not underestimate the difficulty involved, because some UBWs are inhabited at the moment, and if they are to be removed, certain living spaces must be altered, so it takes time. I have a follow-up question on Paul's point. In 2001, how many extra staff did you employ specifically for this action? Before 2011, what was the situation? And as such, we can assess the effectiveness of your policy. Can you share information on the situation after 2011? How much money did you spend, and how many staff did you employ? Since you are seeing more cases, you should have more people. You have already spent the money, so from a value for added perspective, can you go back and share those information with us? Paul? Apart from a major policy change from 2001 to 2011, we spent 27 million for a major reprovisioning initiative, and for rooftop UBWs, the figure amounted to over 10,000. So a lot of problems were serviced. So they were probably out of your expectation. When you look at Annex C, page 77, when I look at your target dates, you did make some changes. In Annex C, item 7, and the time target for receiving ownership particulars and preparing removal orders and warning notices were amended from 30 days to 60. And for item 8, the issue of removal orders or warning notices were extended to 90 days. And for item 10, from between the dates for carrying out compliance inspection, the target was extended from 15 to 150 days. And for 11, determining the status and issuing warning letter to the owner before taking prosecution action was extended from 14 to 50. So all in all, the total time target was extended from 224 days to 470 days. And based on the questions asked by the members already, do you intend to take a more pragmatic approach? Right now, the time targets can never be reached, so you would fail every audit exercise. If you have inadequate resources and you fail to enter the premises and so on, can you clarify? Can you revise the time targets across the board so that everyone has a clear target to follow? Chairman, would you allow the Secretary to speak first? Perhaps I would address this issue. Chairman. In today's public hearing, as well as the first public hearing, members have raised similar concerns as Chair. And I think what Mr. Chair said summarizes what Mr. N. Leung and Mr. Raymond Wong said. Just now, the controlling officer, the permanent secretary, explained to us that the removal of UBWs have undergone changes over time, and in 2011 we removed the metal cages and the scope was extended to UBWs without imminent danger, but that still should be removed out of fairness considerations. In the audit report, the Development Bureau established some time targets, but the actual time required might be somewhat longer, and there are different reasons for that. Apart from the high caseload, there were major incidents. For instance, the Fayun Street fire, Matawai Road collapse, and certain subdivided flats, and a lot of manpower were required to tackle these more imminent cases. I understand that removing UBWs is important, but the reality is that we can never have unlimited resources despite the additions. So this is a long-term task. And as far as long-term tasks go, we have to establish priorities and goals. When Mr. Chair talked about Appendix C, on another electrical occasion, we talked about the military building and windows inspection schemes, and we revised our time targets as well. We understand the members' concern, and we will review the targets and time targets for various policies. I think you should be more realistic. If you place all the burden on the buildings department, it's unfair. The fact is the workload is very high. I accept the criticisms from members today. We should review our priorities and time targets. We will certainly conduct a review. But the audit report also showed some inadequacies in the work of the department. From the Bureau's perspective, we wouldn't want to see repeats of these misdeeds. I'm not encouraging the department to set more aggressive targets, but I think just like political reform, we should just do it first, or take it on board first, and start removing some UBWs. And Mr. Raymond Wong said this cannot be completed even in 100 years. We understand that some incidents are unavoidable, but you should be more pragmatic and ease the time targets. And under Appendix C, under Note 2, according to the BD, for the purpose of expediting actions to clear the backlog of outstanding removal orders, Some time targets on handling public reports have been extended with effect from May 2014. I don't really understand what this means. So in terms of expediting actions, you should look at introducing resources and amending the policy. Do you think you should be extending the time targets? Is this really a solution, Director? As we mentioned, when tackling these UBWs, the buildings department would deploy a coordinator, and the coordinator have to handle complaints and issue removal orders. We face more than 60,000 removal orders, and there are new cases every year. And for the time targets, the original time targets, some are rather short, 15 days. For example, for carrying out compliance inspection, the time target was 15 days. If the coordinator also has to take care of prosecution and inspections, the prosecution might be set aside in favor of more urgent tasks. So that's the purpose of the stipulation under Note 2. We are trying to give our staff more flexibility to take care of their work. Do you think this is too flexible? There should be rules. If you afford flexibility to everyone, then there's nothing your staff can do. You must have a policy in place, right? You must have procedures. The procedures and objectives have remained unchanged. You have extended the time target from 15 to, let's say, 40 days. If the police wants to reduce the crime rate, then they can delay the prosecutions, right? Is that the same logic you are using? You are being self-deceiving. I hope this is not what you meant. If you say you want to expedite the removal, you would extend the processing times for complaints. This doesn't sound very logical. I think we are just trying to establish some priorities. If we think that something's more important than removing existing UBWs, then that's something we have to do. If you don't have enough manpower, then you are going to delay the handling of cases, right? Yes, indeed. As mentioned in the audit report, we process 10 or 20,000 cases a year, and the figure is now more than 40,000. You should introduce more manpower or amend your policy. I think it's as simple as that. If you don't have enough hands, if you are asked to do more work, it's your problem, not his. So you should make this very clear. We have to explain the situation to the public of Hong Kong. If this is only so much you can do, if you have 40,000 odd new cases every year, even if you introduce extra staff, you can never catch up.
And perhaps you should review your LSO policy, and then you should devote your efforts to dealing with the various UBWs, because we don't know when we're going to see an end to the LSOs. Paul, please continue. Para 3.14. Chairman, in 2014, the Buildings Department selected 200 buildings for conducting LSOs, focusing on rooftop podium lane UBWs. And so the BD would take a longer time to clear the rooftop podium lane UBWs erected in about 16,000 buildings as identified in the 2011 stock taking exercise. And just now we discussed how you changed your time target as reflected in Appendix C. And then in paragraph 3.4, you changed your guidelines. To issue a removal order on a confirmed actionable UBW other than a rooftop podium lane UBW within 105 days after conducting an inspection and extended to 180 days. And then in handling the removal orders from 04 to 09, may I refer to Table 7? You set a target, but of course you weren't able to meet your target, especially in 2008 and 2009. And then starting from 2010, you no longer had a target, and this is in 5.11. And would like to know why. Is it that you think you do not need a target anymore? Yes, Chairman. Concerning Table 7, clearance of removal orders from 2004 to 2009. In fact, that was one of the recommendations in the 2004 PAC report. Now, for a removal order, we set a clearance target date. And we hope that by a certain deadline, we will be able to clear the removal orders issued before a certain date. And in fact, we do have a target date for removal orders issued in 2013. In fact, we next time when we set a target clearance date, we will have included clearance or removal orders issued in 2014. But then it is said here that the BD has not set target dates to achieve 100% clearance of removal orders issued from 2010 to 2014. That's paragraph 5.15. Yes, Chairman. It says dealing with all removal orders. Now we are not able to set target dates to achieve 100% clearance of removal orders issued from 2010 to 2014. Now, we have a percentage. For example, 2010, we hope to clear 55% by the end of March, and we don't have targets to achieve 100% clearance. But I think I'm a bit confused. Table 7. 04 to 09, you set the target date to achieve 100% clearance. And so from 04 to 09, you had target dates to achieve 100% clearance. And that's why in para 5.15, the comparison is made on a basis of 100% clearance. But is it that you've decided not to set a target since 2010? Director, Chairman, from 2004 to 2009, we tried to achieve 100% clearance, but we were not able to meet the target. From 2010 to 2013, we did set some targets, but they were not targets to achieve 100% clearance. In 2014, when we updated the records, or when we update the record for 2014, we will include the target date for clearing, for clearance of removal orders issued in 2014. Paul, perhaps after you've asked this question, we can have a break. So we're concerned about the manpower resources you have. We are also concerned about the means you adopt to achieve your objective. So can there be fixed penalty tickets issued? And then for pre-1975 buildings, or before the change in policy in 2001, now I want to say that there are more problems with the older buildings. So can there be any adjustments in regard to a so-called amnesty or a more relaxed policy? I believe last time the secretary or the permanent secretary did give a reply with regard to declaring a so-called amnesty. And then fixed penalties or fines. We will review the matter and see whether we can gain any experience from the mandatory building inspection scheme. All right, we'll have a 10-minute break. If the secretary has to attend to other business, he can be excused. Thank you.